Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of This Weekend. It's a brand new show where every week we talk about your favorite sports, and today we're talking about college football. Alright, as always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified every single time I post a new video. And with that out of the way, let's talk about how I'm doing percentage-wise over 100 picks this season in college football. I've called over 100 games, more specifically 111. I've gotten 74 correct. I'm 74-37 on the season, which comes out to 66.7%. It's going up. Last week it was 64, and the week before that it was 63. So I'm doing better. I'm starting to get a little bit more in stride. Last week I was 17-5, so this time I'm only going to be punished 5 times, and Coach Pat has not told me what she's doing, but this time, in my understanding, I'm not getting any spoons, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens this week. So 5 instances throughout the show, something's going to happen to me. I don't know what yet. So a little nervous about that. Let's jump right into last week's insane moment. Last week's insane moment comes from the Penn State and Indiana game. Indiana scores a touchdown with 22 seconds left, and then they get the 2-point conversion to tie the game up. Now in the first overtime, Penn State gets a touchdown and kicks the extra point to go ahead in the game. Indiana gets the touchdown, but instead of just tying the game and going to double overtime, Penix Jr. has the ultimate effort play to win the game, stretches out to the pylon. It was a bit controversial whether he got it or not, but the play stood, and Indiana gets the win. And why don't we just roll the footage right now? Roll it.
Same thing. Third and goal. Little shot on the delay. The pump. The strike. The conversion. Rob Fillier couldn't finish the game last year. He's trying to finish it this time. 2 hands, 1 foot. Let's see if the ball moves or comes out at all. That looks. Penix steps up. Flush. Penix. Does he have possession? Oh my gosh. He's rolling on the field, stands, touchdown.
Wow, that was crazy, wasn't it? He reached out as far as he possibly could, and I just couldn't believe it. But in my opinion, I think that the ball hit the ground first, and not even that. I think that he was down first and out of bounds. But it was inconclusive. I will give the benefit of the doubt to the referees. I think they made the right call in saying that it stood. But I feel for Penn State. They had a chance for the playoff, and that loss unless they win out, that loss effectively took them out of the playoff race, in my opinion. In my opinion, is always right. Okay, with last week's insane moment done, this week's headlines. There's not really much going on this week, except it's really just coronavirus news. Sadly, I don't want to give this news, but this is what's happening right now. Trevor Lawrence has tested positive for coronavirus. He is definitely out for the Boston College game, and he could be out for the Notre Dame game as well. We don't know what's... We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. ACC protocol says that he has to be out for 10 days with no symptoms before he can come back and practice. So that leaves the door open for DJ Uiagalelei. It'll be very interesting to see how the former 5-star recruit performs against Boston College and possibly in South Bend against Notre Dame. Next story, we have a Wisconsin breakout. There are 16 cases of coronavirus in Wisconsin, leading to the cancellation of the game against Nebraska. This caused Nebraska to try and schedule a game against Chattanooga, which the Big Ten was not having. They shut that down as quick as they could. They stressed that they were only going to do a conference schedule once they went back on their decision back in August. And if you remember, Nebraska was one of the teams that was really pushing to have them reverse that decision. So not a good situation in the Big Ten. It'll be very interesting to see what Nebraska does. But like I said, very slow week, so that's it for the headlines. Let's jump right into this week's games. And number 1, Clemson is hosting Boston College. Easy pick for me, in my opinion. I think Clemson struggled against Syracuse, but that's to be expected, and it's no big deal because Boston College is... I'm going to have a concussion by the end of this. It's DJ's first game. It'll be very interesting to see. It brings a new layer of excitement to this game. I think Boston College has a decent passing game. They've been one of the biggest surprise teams out of the ACC, but I think Clemson's defense is too strong, and Clemson gets an easy win. So give me the Clemson Tigers. Next game, we have number 5 Georgia taking on the Kentucky Wildcats, and Georgia's rush defense has been ridiculously good, only allowing 65 rushing yards per game, while Kentucky's rushing offense has been absolutely outstanding with 183 yards per game. But I think the Georgia defense is going to be too much for that offense to handle. I think that this is going to be an easy win for Georgia, and it could be a very low-scoring game considering how good Georgia's defense is. So give me the Bulldogs. Next game, we have the Memphis Tigers taking on the number 7 Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, Memphis's defense is just not good at all. They've allowed over 500 yards per game this season, which is absolutely dreadful. Easy win for Cincinnati. Continues their playoff push for possibly the first non-Power 5 conference team to go in to the playoff. So that'll be very interesting to see. But give me the Bearcats. Next game, we have Michigan State coming off that horrible loss to Rutgers, taking on their in-state rival Michigan, who just became 13th ranked in the country after beating Minnesota. Michigan and John Harbaugh usually choke at some point in the season. They always do. So would be no surprise if this happens this game, but I don't see that happening considering Michigan State just lost to Rutgers. I think that they'll lose again. Give me the Wolverines. Next game, we have
Oh, hello there. Shrek here.
Big 12 matchup. Did you give me a wet willy? Kansas State taking on West Virginia. Kansas State has performed better against common opponents this season. Against Kansas, K-State won 55-14, while West Virginia only won 38-17. And against Texas Tech, Kansas State won and West Virginia didn't. So with that alone, I could go with Kansas State, but I'll take it one step further, and I'll trust Skylar Thompson against West Virginia's defense better than I'll trust anybody on West Virginia. Next game, we have the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers taking on Georgia State. An easy win for Coastal. I'm an honorary Coastal fan, being from South Carolina, so have to go with Coastal. They're ranked in the AP Top 25, and I think they continue their undefeated season. So give me the Chanticleers. Next game, we have Wake Forest Demon Deacons taking on the Syracuse Orange. Syracuse performed decently well against Clemson, but this season in 2020, Syracuse is the New York Jets of college football, which is not a compliment at all. If you lose to Liberty, you earn that title, and they wear it proudly. Wake Forest is decent enough to get the win anyway, so give me the Demon Deacons. Next game, we have another easy pick for me. Notre Dame taking on Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is just not good this season. I would probably pick Georgia Tech to beat Syracuse, but that's probably the only team that I would pick them to win. In this game, they're going to get blown out. Georgia Tech's no match. Fighting Irish win. Give me the Fighting Irish. Next game, we have Indiana coming off that awesome win against Penn State, taking on Rutgers, who just got their first Big Ten win since 2017 when they played Michigan State. Does Indiana have a letdown game? Most teams, whenever they're not used to success, they get that big win. The next game is either too close, way too close than it should be, or they just lose outright. This is tough because both teams' defenses have been struggling, and I think that Indiana continues their momentum. I think Indiana gets the win against Rutgers because Rutgers just isn't good in my opinion. Whether they beat Michigan State or not, I don't think Rutgers is good enough to beat Indiana. So give me Indiana, give me the Hoosiers. Next game, we have LSU taking on Auburn. It's a battle of the Tigers in the SEC, which usually is a really big matchup, but considering both teams aren't ranked this season, it's kind of lost a little bit of its fire, a little bit of its flair. LSU, they have bounced back hard after their tough start to the season against South Carolina. Last week, they won easily. Auburn lost to South Carolina, if you remember, 30-22. With that in mind, I would have to pick LSU, and I think LSU is going to win just based on their offense and how dangerous they are. I think that it's a pretty easy win for LSU and the Tigers, so give me LSU, give me the Tigers. Next game, we have Texas taking on number 6 ranked Oklahoma State. Sam Ehlinger has had a heck of a season. Oh my goodness, he has over 1,500 yards of total offense and has 24 total touchdowns. And Texas, the only 2 losses were close games. Against Oklahoma, they lost 53-45 in overtime, and against TCU, they lost 33-31. So if you give them those games, those very close one-possession games, they're 5-0, and they're still in the talk for the college football playoff. I think Texas pulls off a big upset and jumps right back into the AP Top 25 because I think Sam Ehlinger is the X factor. I think that he is way too good, and I am calling an upset in Oklahoma State. Give me the Longhorns. Next game, we have Ole Miss taking on Vanderbilt. Easy pick. Vanderbilt's a joke in the SEC. They've been a joke in the SEC for as long as they've been in there. Ole Miss offense is too strong. So, easy win. Easy win, easy pick for Ole Miss.
Benvenuti.
So, with my punishment done, this is really fun. This is what they come to see. This is high-quality content. Next game! We have Virginia taking on Louisville. Virginia Tech taking on Louisville. Excuse me. I am so sorry. Virginia Tech is a better team offensively, and they have performed better. Louisville has been inconsistent. So give me the Hokies in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to ride with the better team. Give me the Hokies. Next game, we have Mississippi State taking on number 2 Alabama. Easy win for the Tide. Even with the loss of Jalen Waddle, I think this is an easy win for them. High-scoring game, but Alabama should win easily. Easy pick. Give me the Crimson Tide. All right, next game, we have the biggest game of the week in Ohio State taking on Penn State. Now, this game has lost a little bit of its fire considering Penn State lost to Indiana. It should have been a top 10 matchup. Now it's just a top 20 matchup. Nevertheless, it's the biggest game in the Big Ten this season. It'll be very interesting to see how Penn State responds. Everything that I've seen, James Franklin is trying to hype his team up and try and get them ready, considering that they just lost that game to Indiana. I think Ohio State is too talented. I don't care how hyped up they get. Ohio State's going to get the win. It could be close, but I'm going to stick with the most talented quarterback on the field and the most talented team. And considering that they just lost to Indiana, they're obviously not ready. So, give me the Buckeyes. Next game, we have North Carolina taking on Virginia. I think Mack Brown and the Tar Heels respond well after losing to Florida State. I think that they continue their decent season. It could have been better if they had remained undefeated, but they beat Virginia because Virginia just isn't there yet. They're on the come up, but they're not ready yet. They're not ready to win consistently. So give me the Tar Heels. And finally, the last game is Oklahoma taking on Texas Tech. It will be a good old-fashioned Big 12 shootout, but I think that Oklahoma is way too talented to pass up on them. I think Oklahoma gets the easy win, and Texas Tech is just no match. With the games out of the way, we're going to finish the show off with Matt's top 6. I'm going to update it just a little bit.
I like it, cut G.
Ow! Oh, I can't see. Bad eye. No, okay. Top 6. Top 6, number 1, Clemson. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Georgia. Number 5, Notre Dame. And number 6, Cincinnati. So not that much different, but still my top 6. And with the top 6 done, we're going to wrap up the show here. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing me get punished in a different way this time. And I hope you like the mustache because I don't know if I'm going to shave it. But be sure to tune in next week for This Week In. I'm your host, Matt Smar, and I'll see you next week in college football.